Hi, Kelly Starrett here from MobilityWOD and San Francisco CrossFit. We're going to show you some basic workouts that you can use to incorporate the Duo Trainer into your regular strength and conditioning practice. So once we begin to build competency in our static end range positions, obviously the way to challenge that is through range motion. So we can start at the top of the push-up in our front rack position and finish at the bottom of our press position. So at the start, remember, each time I'm looking for elbows to be straight, to the straps to be turned out to 11 and 1, really cueing, push away, straighten those arms, bring the hands in a little bit. She's going to lower herself down, keeping the straps parallel, shoulder below the elbow, head engaged, glute engaged, presses back up. We're trying to minimize the amount of back sway or banana backing we see in our athletes. So once again, now at the top, notice that she has not achieved a full lockout position. So we want her to lock out, turn out, there we go. Lowers again, keeps the glute engaged. Elbow will stay over the wrist, head is long and in neutral, presses back up. Maintain that shape, again, coming back to our static position, which we've already practiced. Excellent. Working from static bottom position, we can also move out into overhead. What we're doing is anytime we start in a plank position or in the bottom position and translate out, we're starting to build competency into an overhead position. This overhead position, pulling down, we see in a lot of our pulling sport. So we can start with just on hands on knees, for example, and in this shape. She's going to keep the straps organized, knuckles away, and then she's just going to press out until she's comfortable and then press back. Now the goal here is to try to maintain glute tension and maintain the integrity of the back. Head stays neutral, and if she starts to go so far that we start to see elbows flare or back start to break, we've lost position. We want to bring that back a little bit. So keeping tight and integrated, trying to imagine if I had both arms up over my head, what would that shape look like? Beautiful, lats engaged, pressing down, keeping the glute engaged. Wonderful position to work on competency in this first pulling position while maintaining trunk integrity. Continuing our language about our fundamental shapes, we end up in what we call the hang archetype or hang shape. If I bring my hands into this position, I'll see this in a lot of the pulls I do, even a lot of swimming. It's a fundamental, vital position to have this internal rotation and be stable there. It's best expressed in our modern strength and conditioning language with hands by the side at the top position of the dip, or when I'm supporting myself with hands on the ground. On the Duo straps, all we're looking for is that the straps remain at 12 o'clock or slightly turned out, trying to straighten out the elbows. The easiest way into this fundamental shape, which is a hold position at the top of the dip, is to put the feet out in front of us into an L-sit. This unloads the lower body and allows us to begin to build competency in this position. So our athlete will press up, she'll try to turn handles out slightly, maintaining integrity, pointing the toes, trying to breathe in this shape. So again, best way to do this is either work on time, or total breaths in this position. Make sure that our athlete can hold this static shape and simultaneously work on her breathing. Excellent. As our athletes begin to develop competency at the top position of the dip, the expression of the hang archetype on the Duo, what we want to do is then see them do some eccentric work through range to the bottom position. Once we've seen the athletes aren't going to flop to the bottom, we want to get them actually moving through full range of motion, starting in a strong position at the top, keeping the straps into 12 o'clock, pressing back out and achieving a good range of motion, elbows straight, hands turned out, elbows pinned to the side. I can also help scale my athletes on the first one by just, again, grabbing the back handles of the Duo and making it a little more stable. So I'll start with that for her. She's going to jump up. I'll help her achieve a stable position. She's going to lower herself down into that dip shape, pressing back up. Good. Once she's got competency in that, I can start to wean myself off, give her the control. She'll dip through full range, toes pointed, pressing back up, and it's vital that she expresses full range of motion at the top with full motor control at the top. This is a wonderful movement to build strength, competency, and clearly has high stabilization demands. Wonderful. Jump on down. What are the foundational movements that has to be part of the repertoire of every good strength coach, every coach working with regular average athletes as well, is the row. Moving from a supported position, which is a pull shape, in this end range of what we call the front rack shape, moving towards the press shape. This is an easy thing to scale, easy thing to add in. It's a wonderful cookie, and maintaining trunk stability during a pull position and managing shoulder rotation is a wonderful movement. So here we have the straps are set at a reasonable angle. Athlete walks feet out, and what I'm looking for actually is toes pointed, glutes squeezed. Basic shape starts with handles pointed at 12 o'clock, maintaining this rigid position. What I should see is that my athlete pulls to the top, maintains the integrity of this shape, head is in line, glutes engaged, toes pointed, and lowers herself down. No change in her fundamental geometry or organization around the spine. It looks boring. She pulls up like a stiff board and moves down. This is our goal. We can also move this position by trying to rotate the hands in a little bit, pulling from what feels like a mechanically more stable position but tends to be a little bit more difficult stimulus. So now we've just added a slightly different pull variation to that same concept. Toes pointed, glutes engaged, trunk stable. Adding this additional rotation increases the workload demands. Sets of 10 as a finisher, great, great movement. One of the reasons we want the straps up off the ground with the athlete being able to swing her feet all the way through is that we want to develop the language of the spine that's in global flexion, global extension, and this is easily developed through kipping. Now, I'm not talking about trying to do a kipping or ballistic pull-up here. I'm trying to talk about how do I keep my shoulders loaded and yet end up maintaining the integrity moving from a globally flexed position to a globally extended position. So what we have her do is our athletes jump up on the straps, achieve a static position, and all I'm going to have her do is point her toes and keep her glutes engaged, and then I want her to extend as far as she can behind. So extend behind. So you'll notice with the glutes engaged, toes pointed, that's a tight window, and then come back up forward and to back. And what we're looking for is not a hip hinge, but she's spreading this out. So already you're seeing this tight controlled motion, glutes are engaged through the whole time. Notice that every time she pulls through, she's moving towards a stable position, that the straps are moving thumb backwards. Wonderful way to start to tie in global body movement into shoulder stability, the same kind of position we'd see in swimming. Why this is predominantly a wonderful motion to improve my kicking, improve my jumping, improve this hollowed shape. Again, notice that the range of motion is nice and tight with good control, glutes engaged the whole way, and at no point does she unlock the elbow or go into a fully pulled position without thinking about stability of the shoulder. Great movement. One of our favorite finishers is toes to duo, toes to strap. All we're doing is working on a big pike position while simultaneously maintaining stability in the hang shape or overhead archetype. So our athlete's going to jump up, and all we're going to have her do is try to pike up as much as she can. My assistance, of course, is that as a coach, I can come by, she's got the toes pointed, and I can help her to press. We're looking for that control through range. So in this static variation, can she press up? Hold, I'm letting her looking for control through range of motion. Now, notice she's doing an excellent job of maintaining integrity of the shoulder position through range, which is one of the things we're trying to train. What we're not looking for is that the athlete dumps all of their shoulder stability by internally rotating, but rather maintains some kind of positive torque force on the strap. So she's moving towards neutral, pike up, wonderful position, coming on down and through. Great, great finisher, wonderful abdominal movement, develop her into this globally flexed position while simultaneously building competency in the shoulder, pressing from overhead back to more midline. Great, great movement. Once our athletes begin to show competency in some of their static holds, one of the ways that we can challenge their pull-up is by adding a lower extremity demand. So bringing the legs up into an L position with toes pointed is a wonderful way of, again, challenging the competence in this overhead position, but pulling into a pull-up in this shape is a wonderful strength exercise. So if my athletes have lots of strict pull-ups and I don't want to load them with an additional weight, I can put them in an L sit. So toes come up, toes are pointed, trying to pull up, good control, and on the way down. And notice that he lowered on the way down, but we're moving in towards stability. So we're adding that rotation as we pull. And I can even say, hey, delay that, keep that on the way down. Go ahead, but keep the handles in that position, maintaining shoulder stability, integrity. And you'll notice he gets peeled at the end, which allows him to come to full range, especially when the the legs are in that L shape. So that's okay as long as he winds up and moves towards stability begins. Great, great position, wonderful strength, building exercise for our pulling athletes who are strong enough to handle it. Beautiful. One of the easy ways to continue to build competency at the top position of the pull-up is to have our athletes lock off in multiple hand positions. What we're going to find is that a lot of our athletes feel very strong in this shape, but we should be able to independently maintain the integrity of shoulder positioning no matter what the hand is doing. So an easy drill is to have our athletes lock off and then begin to play with rotation with one hand at a time. So this is an easy stabilization drill. Locks off, and then she went to full palm facing, and then I'm just going to have her rotate out and then rotate back. She rotates out, away, increasing range of motion demands, stabilization demands, and come back. So without even having to press away, just by adding the rotational stability, we can add another and create a new movement. But since she's in this position, we can also begin to move out one arm at a time, coming back to support, one arm at a time, coming back to support. She's in this full chin lock position, but let's see what if she turns out in this position, more neutral, and does the same thing. Now she's spent about 10 minutes hanging in this isometric shape. Wonderful. The idea here, though, is making sure that our athletes can develop peak stability concepts but still have freedom of motion. Can we choose a stable position and then I can play with one hand or the other and simultaneously adding in higher degrees of range of motion to challenge the position. Wonderful movement.